Trump's former national security advisor, General Mike Flynn, stated that the CIA needs to be completely shut down and disbanded. Take a listen to this.
He needs to recognize that we must stop the CIA from driving U.S. policy, domestically and foreign. I'm telling you, Steve, that is a massive, massive problem. And I wouldn't say 50%. I would say shut the doors. It is no longer. It's a dead organization because it's an organization that is killing. It operates in the darkness. It is killing us. And so that's my message to President Trump. That's sort of step one for him. I don't care what somebody's handicap is. You take that organization and you rip it apart because that organization is driving our policy everywhere, and it's killing our country right now. And it really is. I mean, the people that are part of it and the people that have been part of it are the ones still operating and driving everything going on in our nation. I mean, it's got to stop. It has to stop. And that means in Congress, that means in the White House, that means in the judiciary, and that's definitely overseas, some of the things that they're doing, the nefarious things that they're doing. And that's not going to make me any friends over there at Langley, but too goddamn bad. These people, right. This organization is driving this country and has been driving this country for 50 years or more.
So let's just stop there. General Mike Flynn is the former national security advisor to Trump's first term. He actually only served for 22 days before resigning. He resigned because of reports that he had misled Vice President Pence and others about his conversations with Russian ambassadors regarding sanctions. He pleaded guilty to making false statements to the FBI regarding those conversations, but was later pardoned by Trump in November of 2020. So that's just a little bit of background on this dude. However, regardless of that, everything he had to say regarding the CIA is absolutely correct. Now, he said rip the CIA apart. That specific sentence caught my eye because of the fact that the last president who said they wanted to rip the CIA apart into 1,000 pieces was actually John F. Kennedy. And in the last JFK files that were released by Trump's administration, I was able to actually find a letter that was sent to John F. Kennedy regarding restructuring the CIA. I have the letters right over here, the documents. These are previous documents. Let me go ahead and share this tab here. There we go. And this was written on June 30th of 1961. And it was regarding the CIA restructuring. And it's a long document, but it basically says the argument of this memorandum is that the CIA's trouble can be traced to the autonomy with which the agency has been permitted to operate, and that this autonomy is due to three main causes. Number one, inadequate doctrines of clandestine operations. Number two, an inadequate conception of the relationship between the operations and policy. And number three, inadequate. Let me go to the next page here. Number three, inadequate. Looks like that part got cut off. But we basically see it. Let me show you the next slide here. There follows from this, I would think that the conclusion and that secret sensitivities are permissible so long as they do not corrupt the principles and practices of our society, and they do not cause permissions when their effect is to corrupt these principles and practices. And it talks a lot about how the CIA conducts foreign operations. The conclusion of this document that was sent to President John F. Kennedy, the argument of this memorandum implies a fairly drastic rearrangement of our present intelligence setup. It implies the capacity of the State Department to assume command of the situation and to do so in an effective and purposeful way. If the State Department, as it is presently staffed, is not capable of assuming effective command, this is not, in my judgment, an argument against a rational reorganization of intelligence. It is an argument for a drastic overhaul of the State Department. That is absolutely wild. That's absolutely wild. And again, this was released in the last JFK files. I'm happy to upload a link and send those so that way you guys can see it as well. So the last president that really took a stand against the CIA was President John F. Kennedy. Keep in mind, the CIA is a relatively new organization in comparison to the history of the United States. It was its inception was, I believe, 1947 or 1948, just within a year of when Israel's Mossad actually was as well. So very quickly, the CIA has taken a mind of its own. It doesn't matter who's in politics. The CIA is doing covert operations. And who's to say that the CIA is simply not misleading the president with false intelligence? If the CIA really wants a regime change operation in Venezuela, all they really would need to do is present the president with false information that Venezuela is trafficking drugs. Maybe the president also knows it's a lie, and sometimes he goes along with it in order to just cause that regime change operation. And maybe other times, a small clique within the CIA are the only people that know it's a lie and intentionally provide false information to our political elected leaders. It's hard to say because of the truth of the matter is everything is done in secrecy. I'll give you another example that I talk about a lot is James Angleton, the former counterintelligence officer at the CIA during John F. Kennedy's administration. While John F. Kennedy was fighting with Israel's former Prime Minister Levi Eshkol to stop the development of nuclear weapons, James Angleton, the counterintelligence chief at the CIA, was actively helping the Israeli Mossad in their nuclear weapon development, sending them confidential information, nuclear equipment, uranium. So the CIA has a mind of its own. Another example, back in the early 90s, and I've previously talked about this when it came to the cocaine trafficking from the Venezuelan National Guard to the United States. The CIA took total control of that operation, and they actually helped the Venezuelan National Guard bring cocaine into the United States. And their justification was to find drug trafficking networks coming from Venezuela, and by allowing the cocaine to come into the United States uninterrupted, they'd be able to basically map out that entire network. I believe I previously shared a video on it. So if you click my last few videos on Venezuela, you'll be able to see that. Regardless, the CIA is operating with its mind of its own. Clearly, it doesn't seem like it's benefiting American interests. Here's another example. And a lot of individuals state that the reason Ukraine had its regime change back in 2011 from a pro Russia president to a very pro Ukraine nationalist president, Zelensky's in power, is because of the fact that the CIA helped influence regime change operation in Ukraine back in the early 2000s in order to get a pro Russia president or a friendly with Russia Ukrainian administration out of there and have a more pro-Western puppet in place. Ultimately, how much did that help, considering now there is a war between Ukraine and Russia that's been going on for years? So, a lot of the time, the CIA's actions end up backfiring on the United States and don't actually help because no matter how much you think that by doing something you'll end up getting one specific result, what you'll realize is the world is very fluid and very malleable. And one thing you might try to achieve ends up backfiring and causes a whole nother problem. For example, ISIS in the Middle East. The CIA trained and funded ISIS. ISIS also arose in the power vacuum that ensued after the downfall of Saddam Hussein, which was a war the United States went into because of the CIA, because Israel pushed America into that war to take out its greatest enemy. And we did that. And what ended up happening when Saddam Hussein's regime fell over? Well, there was a power vacuum, and radical Muslims took its place that were trained and funded by the CIA, Al Qaeda as well. Same thing happened in Syria to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. The United States, the CIA, during Barack Obama's administration, started Operation Timber Sycamore, where they trained opposition fighters to Bashar al-Assad in order to overthrow his regime. And what's that caused across the entire Middle East? It's caused radical religious extremism that's funded by the CIA. That's what happens. So regardless of what president you plop in power, and regardless of how good their intentions are, the CIA is going to keep acting on a mind of its own. And it's not just the CIA, it's the Mossad as well. I previously showed you a video. I made that video on the assassination attempt by the Mossad on George H.W. Bush a few weeks back now. And one of the clips in the video from Viktor Ostrovsky, he's the former Israeli Mossad officer. And in his clip, he made a speech back, I believe it was in 1985. And during his speech, he said that the Mossad doesn't care about who's elected in power because the Mossad, and I see the same goes with the CIA, sees these elected politicians as coming and going. None of them are actually set in stone. None of them are fixed. However, the CIA and the Mossad are eternal, as in the people within the CIA and the Mossad are going to stick around. And regardless of who's in power as a political leader, that may be changing. But what's happening within the CIA, the covert operations, they can plan decades out because they don't care who's in power. They're going to be doing things on their own. And they have complete autonomy to shift US foreign policy by putting out manipulated information, by conducting foreign operations, covert foreign operations, a lot of the time, the majority of the time, without the approval of the US government. It has a mind of its own, and it's been dragging America into war after war after war. And the CIA and Israel, I think, are one and the same. I think the CIA is truly the Israeli Mossad. The overlap between the CIA and Israel has no bounds. Okay, if it's for the interests of Zionism, it's for the interests of the CIA, and vice versa. So that is the state of America we're in today. I don't think the idea of the CIA ever becoming disbanded and ripped apart seems like a fairy tale. We'll see how things unfold moving forward. Regardless, it was a pretty interesting interview he gave. If you found this clip interesting, make sure to go ahead and click the subscribe button below and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my channel grow. Otherwise, I'll see you